Hello, folks. This is another of the series, How to Keep Your Essay from Bleeding Red in Tony's Classes. And today's lesson is about revising your argumentative essay. I'm going to try and give you some basic advice. Some of it you already know, some of it you've already done, but nonetheless, it doesn't hurt to reiterate. It's important to highlight your thesis or put it in red in your introduction, just as you did in the editing process in the rough draft. And then ask your question about the thesis. Is it in fact a real thesis? Is it in fact making an argument, or is it just a topic? And for this, you might want to run it again through the Sheridan-Baker thesis engine. It's a really good way of making sure that your thesis is a thesis, not just a topic. For example, gender in Indian fiction is a topic. And if you have something like that, that's just a topic, then that means you're going to just be wandering all over the place talking about gender in Indian fiction without arguing anything in particular about gender in Indian fiction. And you'll end up with a paper that's a mess. It'll be wandering without a center. And the problem with such a thing is that instead of being a journey towards a destination, it's sort of like you've gone off track and you're wandering in the woods and you've gotten lost and there's no food and the rainstorm is coming on and you hear wolves howling and you don't know what to do, right? Don't put your reader in that circumstance. Make sure that there's an end to the road, something that you're working towards. Sorry for that extended metaphor. Okay. So here is a thesis versus a topic. Gender in Indian fiction is a topic. A thesis might be, although women are well represented among famous contemporary Indian writers, their fiction highlights gender inequalities that persists across Indian culture. In Ruth Prarajaval's Picnic with Moonlight and Mangoes, for example, and then you can go on. So that's an argument you're making, that women are given a certain amount of success, but their fiction itself shows that that success comes despite the fact of persistent gender inequality, which their characters and presumably they themselves suffer and have suffered. Okay, that's an argument. It could be true, it could be false. You can argue it one way or another. You can make it convincing or not convincing. The key thing is it's an argument which you can marshal evidence for on one side and for the other. And that's at the core of what you're doing when writing an argumentative essay. Next, the weakest part of every paper, outside of very, very weak introductions that don't have a real thesis, are really weak conclusions. Because, you know, what is a conclusion? A conclusion is where you say, well, I've done this journey. What did it mean? Okay. It doesn't kind of do any good. Let's say you just walked from New York to San Francisco. Okay. You walked from New York to San Francisco, this extraordinary journey. And you go into a bar, and you're talking to a friend, and your friend says, so how was the journey? And says, well, first I walked through New Jersey, and then I got off the turnpike, and then I went through the town of Hackensack, and then I went to the next. Okay, you can basically restate everything you've argued before. You could say, I went here, I went here, I went here, I went here, and here, but it doesn't do any good to help us understand what the journey meant. So don't simply restate what you've argued before. Does your journey take the argument one final step? You know, I've walked from New York to San Francisco. There's nowhere more to walk except into the ocean. What are the consequences of your conclusion? Does it pass the so what test? What have you learned about America by walking from New York to San Francisco? How strong are your calves now? You know, how's your aerobic capacity? But also, what do you know about America, having passed throughout the whole country and talked to people along the way? What are the consequences? Is your conclusion too short? Probably that if it's too short, it means you haven't quite figured out what the importance of the journey was. Can you use the scorpion tail or the other methods from the other How Not to Bleed Red presentation on conclusions. Take a look at that again and think whether you can use one of those methods to make your conclusion work better. Okay, really, 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 really important. Your paragraphs are not bricks, right? One brick next to another brick, next to another brick. Or if they are bricks, your building's not going to stand up if you don't put mortar between the bricks, right? It's got to be brick and mortar, or else there's no glue to hold those bricks together, and the wall will fall down. Here comes the big bad wolf. Watch out. Okay, so therefore, you need the mortar. What is the mortar? The mortar is transitions. Where is the transition? At the end of every paragraph and at the beginning of every next paragraph, where you echo something, right? You end with a point and then you pick up the point in the next thing. Ruth Parjavala has a character who's immensely charming, but he shows that he's not faithful to his wife, and though he although he says he worships women, it's clear that he's really just worshiping himself. End of one paragraph. We can see that he's worshiping himself by the fact that, okay, next paragraph begins by picking up on the last points, picking up on some of the words and transitioning to get you going. These transitions keep you from wandering off topic, right? That's A. And they force you to articulate how each paragraph relates back to the thesis, right? The key thing is, if you are writing a paragraph, that paragraph in the body should be proving some part of the thesis itself. And it's not bad to say, to keep coming back to the thesis and showing how each paragraph is in fact relating back to that thesis. And that could be part of your transitional strategy. Okay, and again, the same way, make sure that each paragraph starts with a topic sentence. We've been going over this quite a bit already this semester, but without a topic sentence, your paragraph will lack purpose. It won't connect to the larger argument. So again, you're going to be wandering around in the woods while the bears and the wolves howl, and you have no fire and no GPS and your phone is dead. Wow, it sounds terrible. Sounds like you probably should have brought a flashlight. What's the flashlight? Your topic sentence. Okay. You will probably lose the attention of your reader. You're basically saying, here's a bunch of prose. Read it. I'm not going to tell you what it means or why it's there. What? It's like saying, here's a wilderness. I could have made a road for you to travel through that wilderness, but I think I'm just going to let you get lost in there and risk death, right? Don't lose your reader. Don't make your reader get lost. Give them GPS. What is the GPS? Your topic sentence. If you don't have that topic sentence, not only will your reader get lost, chances are you yourself will get lost. There you'll be, a couple of people wandering out in the wilderness and really in great danger. Have a topic sentence, okay? You remember what paragraph structure is from another one of these presentations. Paragraph structure starts with that topic sentence, presents evidence, and then argues about that evidence, gives you analysis of that evidence. And the evidence could be, data, it could be quotation, whatever, but that analysis, that evidence has to be analyzed afterwards. If it's all plot summary, we say, oh, in this story, this happens, and this happens, and this happens, and this happens, then it's a lot like walking from New York to San Francisco and telling people all about it, but only saying, first I went here, then I went there, then I went there, without telling people why. Plot summary without analysis is kind of boring. I'm sorry, a bit like people trying to tell you about their summer vacation, where they went, without telling you why you should care, okay? If your paragraph has no quotations, you are in trouble. Let me say that again. If your paragraph has no quotations, you are in trouble. Why? That means A, you are not reading the text carefully enough. You're not reading the text closely. That's A. B, you are not giving evidence to prove your points. You can make a great argument, but you never actually relate it back to your text, then you're in trouble. this would be a really good time to track down that evidence to support your assertions. A little trick I sometimes do. I will gather all the most interesting quotations about a story or a poem I'm going to write about, and then I will organize them. These are quotations about gender. These are quotations about the god of illusion. These are quotations about etc. And I'll put titles in there, I'll put the quotations underneath, and then I will be able, when I need to pull from those quotations and pop them right into paragraphs. In fact, if I know already what my paragraphs are going to be about, I can put the quotations in first and then build the argumentation around them. They're almost like the bones of the skeleton, and then you put the flesh on afterwards, like in a wax museum. The last thing you want to do in your very, very busy life is, I've just written this paper and I like it pretty much, but I'm tired and I have classes in the morning and I have to work and I really can't think anymore. The last thing I want to do is go over the grammar and the punctuation. Last thing I want to do is to take my clunky and awkward sentences and give them clarity and style. The last thing I want to do is to read over my paper like somebody who's never read it before, to make sure what I'm saying makes sense and to make sure what I'm saying could be understood. The last thing I want to do is to make sure the grammar and the punctuation are correct. Well, that's what CAS is for. Maybe you want to go to CAS, the Center for Academic Success, online and work with a tutor. You might want to have a friend in the class look at your paper, and you look at your friend's paper, just like we do in the peer review, and just read them for grammar and punctuation and clarity and style. I want to say this, you'll hear me say this in class as well. If you don't understand the grammar or a punctuation issue, like let's say the difference between lay and lie, which I'd say 90% of students get wrong, not only students, but people in the world, or you don't know where to put a comma in a sentence or any of the other things we've been talking about, master it, figure it out, look it up, understand it, fix it in your paper and learn it. If you take that responsibility for one paper once, chances are you won't make that same mistake again or make it less. And then instead of saying to people in that apologetic way, people say, oh, I'm a terrible writer, or I just don't understand grammar, I just don't understand punctuation. You've done the very simple work, let's say 5 minutes on the internet to figure out what a comma splice is, for example, so that because of those 5 minutes, you don't have to make the same mistake for the next 4 years of your college career. Think about that. 4 years of mistakes could be eliminated by 5 years of work. Sorry, 5 minutes of work. It might feel like 5 years. I meant minutes. And in other words, you know, I have a 5-year-old, and until recently, if you threw him in the swimming pool, he would sink. And now he's swimming like a fish. And a lot of that, what really helped with that is we talked to him about the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And I don't want to talk to you guys like 5-year-olds, but it helped my son learn how to swim. So maybe they'll help you with grammar and punctuation. A fixed mindset basically says, I'm no good at this, I can't do this. A growth mindset says, I'm not good at this now. If I do this work, I'll get better at it. Soon I'll be really good at it, right? Too many people when it comes to writing have a fixed mindset. With a growth mindset, you realize the only thing that's holding you back is your own lack of self-confidence, or the fact that you kind of procrastinate and say, I'll do the work later, I'll figure it out later, or you want to do it through osmosis. Why? If I say on my comments on your paper, you're using comma splices, well, figure out what a comma splice is, figure out how to use coordinating conjunctions, semicolons, or to break it up into 2 sentences so as to fix it. 3 easy solutions to 1 simple problem. And your paper will no longer bleed red. Well, I've ranted about this long enough. I hope that this has been a little bit useful. Thank you.